When Isabel Erickson opened her eyes, nothing made sense to her. The first thing she noticed was the ceiling, a corrugated steel beams held together with wooden joists. Her body felt sluggish, her thoughts heavy, and her throat unbearably dry. The air around her smelled of dust and damp concrete. Then came the sharp pain in her arm. Looking down, she saw an IV needle lodged in her vein. She yanked it out in a panic, her mind racing to understand where she was. That's when she noticed him, a man sitting calmly in a chair just a few feet away, his cold green-blue eyes fixed on her. He didn't flinch when she gasped. Instead, he leaned forward slightly and spoke in an unnervingly steady voice. "You've been kidnapped. I'm planning to keep you here for a while." The words hit her like a physical blow, but it was his casual tone that made her blood run cold. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. The man, who had introduced himself as Martin just days earlier, was disturbingly composed. Isabel's eyes darted around the room. The cold, dusty space wasn't just a room. It was a bunker, and judging by its features, it had been built for one purpose: to keep someone like her inside. Martin Tremborg wasn't just an ordinary man. He was a Swedish doctor with an outwardly respectable life. But beneath the surface lay years of methodical, chilling preparation. Over 5 years, he meticulously designed and constructed an underground bunker on his own property. Hidden from sight and sound, the bunker was fortified with thick concrete walls, soundproofing, and 3 steel doors weighing over 300 kilograms each. Each door had its own combination lock, and the bunker had an independent ventilation system, water from a borehole, and self-installed electricity. It was self-sufficient, escape-proof, and disturbingly deliberate. Neighbors had occasionally seen Martin working on the site, pouring concrete and assembling the bunker's components, but they hadn't thought much of it. He kept it to himself and offered vague explanations about his project. A neighbor who once helped him erect the walls was never invited back, told that the work was too delicate for anyone else. In hindsight, these small details painted a disturbing picture of secrecy and control. Isabel Eriksson was a Swedish escort living in Stockholm. She managed her work with professionalism, maintaining strict boundaries with her clients. She lived in a cozy studio apartment in Östermalm with her toy poodle Nellie, who was her constant companion. Outside of work, Isabel enjoyed a vibrant social life and dreamed of pursuing a more stable and fulfilling path. She had a passion for horseback riding and hoped to return to the sport one day. When Isabel met Martin, he seemed like a professional, polite man. He portrayed himself as an American businessman based in London, visiting Stockholm for work. Their first meeting was uneventful, with Martin leaving a positive impression. He seemed refined, intelligent, and calm, qualities that put Isabel at ease. And when he requested a second meeting to attend a formal dinner with his colleagues, Isabel didn't hesitate to agree. That Saturday evening, Martin arrived at her apartment on time, bearing gifts: a box of perfume and a bowl of chocolate-dipped strawberries. The strawberries, however, were laced with flunitrazepam, a powerful sedative. Isabel had no idea what was coming as she chatted with Martin. She's sipping on champagne and planning the night ahead. But as the minutes passed, she began to feel drowsy, far more than she should have after just one drink. The last thing she remembered was laying on the bed, Martin's voice softly reassuring her as she slipped into an unconsciousness. By the time she wakes up, she was no longer in her apartment. She was trapped in Martin's bunker. When Isabel woke up, her senses were dulled, her body heavy. The air in the bunker was cold, dusty, and oppressive. She looked around in confusion, taking in the gray, unfinished walls and the harsh light from a single bulkhead lamp. A shiver ran through her as she realized she wasn't at home. Her throat was dry and her arm throbbed where the IV needle had been. Sitting calmly nearby was Martin. He wasn't the polite client she met just a few days earlier. Now he was with her captor, and he didn't try to sugarcoat it. "You've been kidnapped," he said, his tone disturbingly casual. "I've built this bunker to keep you here for a couple of years." Martin's words sent a wave of panic through Isabel. A couple of years? Her thoughts raced. This wasn't some impulsive crime. This man had planned every single detail. She tried to speak, but her voice was hoarse, barely audible. Her dog Nellie whined softly by her side, sensing the tension in the room. As Martin spoke, he began describing the bunker with an unsettling sense of pride. He boasted about its 3 steel doors, each with combination locks, and the soundproof concrete walls that ensured no one would hear her screams. The bunker had everything it needed to sustain life: clean water from a borehole, a ventilation system, and self-installed electricity. "No one's getting in or out," he said, with an unnerving confidence. Isabel's survival instincts kicked in right away. Her first reaction was to fight. She spotted a pair of screws nearby and lunged at Martin, desperate to catch him off guard, but her body was still sluggish from the drugs, and Martin easily overpowered her. He wrenched the screws from her hands and shoved her back down. "Don't ever try that again," he warned, his voice cold and firm. As he left the room, Isabel heard the heavy slam of that first steel door, followed by the mechanical clicks of locks being secured. Then came another door and another. Each sound felt like another layer of her freedom being stripped away. She screamed for help, her voice echoing uselessly off the concrete walls. No one could hear her. Now, once her tears subsided, Isabel forced herself to assess her surroundings. The bunker was unfinished, bleak, and designed for one purpose: captivity. There was a small kitchen with scattered utensils, a workbench piled with planks of wood, and a bed that smelled faintly of dust. In one corner, 2 toilet bowls sat unplumbed, a stark reminder that Martin had planned for the long term. Despite her fear, Isabel resolved not to give in to despair. She studied every detail of the bunker, noting anything that might offer a way out. Her thoughts oscillated between hope and hopelessness. Did anyone know she was missing? Would her friend, the policeman she was supposed to meet in a few days, notice her absence? Or had Martin's planning ensured no one would come looking? Isabel held Nellie close, finding solace in her tiny dog's presence. "I'll get us out of here," she whispered, though she had no idea how. What she did know was that she couldn't let Martin win. She couldn't let this bunker become her reality. Martin's control over Isabel grew tighter with each passing day. He maintained a twisted facade of civility, bringing her food and water and even suggesting that she make use of her time in the bunker. "Write down what you'd like me to bring you: books, snacks, anything you need," he said one day, tossing a notebook and pen onto the bed as if he were accommodating a house guest. His calm demeanor was chilling, his behavior calculated to manipulate and dominate. Isabel watched him closely, searching for any weakness in his routine. She quickly learned that Martin had thought of everything. He had removed potential weapons from the room after her failed attack with the screws. He monitored her movements and kept her isolated, always locking the bunker's 3 steel doors behind him when he left. She could hear the heavy mechanisms engage, one after another, each lock a barrier to her freedom. Martin began revealing more of the bunker, as to show off. He explained how he had studied other cases of long-term abductions, learning from their mistakes. "They made it too easy for the women to escape," he said, shaking his head as if critiquing an engineering flaw. "I've made sure that won't happen here." He detailed the soundproofing, the self-sufficient systems, and the security measures, all with unsalting air of pride. Now for Isabel, the worst part wasn't just the physical confinement, it was the psychological torment. Martin insisted that she would adjust to life in the bunker. "You might even start to like it," he said, a twisted smile on his face. He justified his actions by claiming he wasn't harming her physically, as though the emotional and psychological trauma didn't matter. "I don't want to hurt you," he repeated, his words ringing hollow in the suffocating space. Nights in the bunkers were especially cruel to her. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of the ventilation system. Nellie's soft whimpers often punctured the stillness, a painful reminder of the innocent life trapped alongside Isabel. She held her dog tightly, finding strength in her presence but also despair at the thought of Nellie enduring this nightmare. Now, despite the fear and isolation, Isabel refused to give up. She began to play along with Martin's demands, carefully masking her true intentions. When he spoke, she listened intently, memorizing every little detail he shared about the bunker's layout and systems. She pretended to comply, writing shopping lists and nodding at his comments, all the while planning her escape. Then one evening, an opportunity presented itself. Martin, perhaps overconfident in his control, left the inner door unlocked before exiting the bunker. Isabel's heart raced as she realized her chance had come. She moved quickly but cautiously, holding Nellie's close as she navigated through the dimly lit space. Reaching the door, Isabel tested the handle. It opened with a soft creak, and she slipped through, her adrenaline overriding the fear coursing through her veins. But with each step forward, she encountered new challenges. The heavy doors, the combination locks, the suffocating sense of time slipping away. She knew Martin could return at any moment, and every second felt like a gamble. Isabel's escape attempt ended with a mix of triumph and terror. After she navigated the bunker's many barriers, she finally breached the last door and stumbled into the cool, fresh air of the outside world. Her lungs filled with the scent of freedom, but she couldn't let herself stop. Not yet. Holding Nellie tightly, she ran, her legs weak but fueled by adrenaline. The landscape around her was unfamiliar, shadowy and vast, but she pressed on, determined to put as much distance as possible between herself and Martin's bunker. Help came when a passing driver spotted her frantic gestures, collapsing into the car with Nellie in her arms. Isabel broke down in uncontrollable sobs. For the first time in weeks, she was safe. But her ordeal wasn't over. She knew Martin had to be stopped before he could harm anyone else. When law enforcement descended upon Martin Trenberg's property, they uncovered a nightmare of precision and planning. The bunker was exactly as Isabel had described, a heavily fortified underground prison built to ensure no one could escape or hear the cries of its occupants. Investigators marveled the extent of Martin's preparations. The 3 steel doors, each weighing over 300 kilograms, had been installed with combination locks only he knew. The soundproof concrete walls and self-sufficient systems, including a borehole for water and independent electricity, spoke to years of meticulous effort. Evidence from the site revealed Martin's disturbing intent. He had studied past abduction cases to avoid mistakes, taking lessons from other criminals who had been caught. His goal wasn't just to keep Isabel captive, it was to perfect the act of holding someone prisoner indefinitely. Police also interviewed neighbors who recalled his secretive construction activities. One neighbor admitted to helping him erect parts of the bunkers years earlier, but said he'd been dismissed from the project and never invited back. During the investigation, Martin showed little remorse. His calm, detached demeanor unnerved everyone involved. He admitted to the kidnapping, explaining his actions with clinical, almost detached logic. "I wasn't going to hurt her," he said. He told investigators as if that absolved them of any responsibility. His lack of empathy only deepened the horror of his crimes. For Isabel, the days after her escape were a blur of media attention, police interviews, and emotional recovery. The trial brought her face to face with Martin again, a moment that reignited the trauma she had endured. But Isabel's testimony was a turning point, exposing the full extent of Martin's calculated cruelty and ensuring he would face justice. Now the whole case captivated the world, with Martin earning the chilling nickname the Bunker Doctor. His meticulous planning, his years of preparation, and the sheer audacity of his crimes shocked even seasoned investigators. For Isabel, though, the story wasn't about Martin. It was about survival. Despite the trauma, she resolved to rebuild her life and share her experience, proving that even in the darkest moments, resilience would prevail. Martin was sentenced to prison, his years of calculated cruelty laid bare for the world to see. The media's fascination with the Bunker Doctor painted a grim portrait of this man who had turned his knowledge and resources towards an unspeakable purpose. His arrest and conviction were a relief to many, but the emotional scars he left behind were harder to heal. Now, as for Isabel, her journey to recovery was just the beginning. She worked to rebuild her life, drawing strength from her unwavering spirit and the love for her small but loyal companion Nellie. She refused to let the darkness of her ordeal define her, instead choosing to use her story to inspire others and shed light on the psychological toll of her captivity. The bunker itself became a symbol of the horrors Isabel endured, a place that had been designed to keep her trapped forever. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's story, and I hope to see you again for the next one. If you like this one, please hit that subscribe and that like. Thank you.